We were very optimistic that we were going to come back because we had sort of hit our stride and we were one of their favorites, and so we thought we would come back.
We knew we had good stuff, so I think we must be back. So it was quite a shock to hear we were canceled.
Nuts.
We were such a family. We enjoyed working together, very much so. And to have that end sucked.
We made a very difficult decision, and it was to cancel the show.
So you're canceled. It's never a shock, really. You look at it, you say, you know that's coming. So it's done.
And everyone in this town is suffering because of it.
We had so much more story we wanted to tell.
And to think that that was the end of it was, I think, devastating for all of us.
And the fans didn't want an ending. They wanted it to continue. So after a little while, they renewed us as a mid-season.
We just had so much fun, and we were such a family, so it was really crushing. And that's why it's just such an unbelievable roller coaster ride, going from being canceled to 3 weeks later coming back.
When we made the decision to pick up the show, we literally have 48 hours to make all the new deals. We had to make deals with the writers, we had to make deals with the actors. Before we could make the pickup or the announcement, we had to know that they could meet the new production demands.
We were elated, and shocked, and had no idea that it would work.
We screamed like little girls for about 5 minutes.
The season 2 story was not fully broken, but it was pretty together by the time we all sat down.
That was what we were so jazzed about, was kind of where the show was going to go.
The first day back was insane, really. It was a lot more screaming like girls.
It is fun to be us this year. Everybody loves us this year.
We still have a lot of the same old faces. So it wasn't just the actors, but we did have our prop department, we did have our sound department, we did have our wardrobe. And you come and show up and everybody's just throwing their arms around one another.
We are exceptionally close. And, I've been doing this for a very long time, made a lot of friends in the business, but this company of actors, its crew, we genuinely hang out with each other.
We ended season 1 on this cliffhanger with 3 elements to it. We were on the verge of a war with an overwhelming force that we really couldn't fight. We saw a tank trying to stop a train that was full of new troops and new ammunition. And we saw the government of Cheyenne, who we don't know anything about, but we know they have an altered American flag, coming to Jericho to stop the war, but at the same time coming to Jericho hunting for a terrorist who they know has a nuclear bomb, and we know that that's Hawkins. So those were the 3 things we had set up. Dan and Kareem and I sat down and hashed it out and decided we have to pay off every single one of those cliffhangers, and we have to do it in a big way, even if it means spending every bit of our budget for special effects for the whole year.
And we said the first episode back is going to attract some attention. We need to put some money into that one. And we also knew that the last episode, whether we decided to either wrap up the series if the ratings aren't going well, or continue the series, we knew that's where the money had to go.
Where are you going to have exteriors? Where are you going to have action sequences? When are you going to blow things up? Because we got to blow things up.
The mushroom cloud in the first season was a visual effect, obviously. But when JD set off that napalm explosion, which is all practical, it looked like another mushroom cloud.
It's kind of one of those effects man things that I got to do a napalm run. And when they asked if they can do that, it's one of those things where they're kind of tentative. Do you think we can do a napalm run? How big do you think we can make it so that the visual effects guys can make it, look like it's big? And my answer is full size. Let's go, let's do it.
It was hot. We had camera and cast, maybe 100 feet away, 150 feet away.
It involved a couple 100 gallons of gasoline, a 200-foot-long trench, and a lot of tests with the fire department to make sure that we weren't going to burn down Simi Valley or the Big Sky Ranch.
3, 2, 1, go! Skeet, he felt the warmth. Skeet's a great actor. He didn't have to do much acting when this explosion went off in front of him. Cut it!
Dan, Kareem, and I had to go in and pitch CBS on what season 2 would be. We had pitched them a huge epic story told in 3 different cities. One story in Jericho, one story in Cheyenne, which was going to be the new government that was set up, and one story in New York City. New York City has survived the attacks, and one of our characters is living in New York. We've heard about him before, but we've never met him. So we were going to focus on him and watch him come back to Jericho. When we were brought back with only 7 episodes and with a shorter time frame, we decided to just tell the Jericho story. But we tell that one Jericho story that should have taken 22 episodes, and we tell it in 7, which means there's no treading water. There's no fat to the whole thing. Everything moves forward very quickly.
I walk into the office and I sit down and I meet Dan and I meet Kareem, and they say, here's the deal. Last season we were doing the show in 8 and 9 days an episode. Well, here's the kicker. The mandate is we have to do them in 7 days. And we have percentage less money. Okay.
We were up against it, and I'm not going to lie to you. It was hard, and it took all of us saying, all right, we're just going to live, sleep, eat, and breathe this thing for 7 episodes. We can do it for 7, right? We can hold on for 7. I don't think we could have done it for 13, and we certainly couldn't have done it for 22. But for 7, we were all sort of like, let's just sleep here.
Yes, a show can be done, and it can be accomplished if there's a cooperative collaboration within the ranks of the writers, the producers, the crew, and everybody understands that that's the goal.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
The cast knew what their show was and loved their show and loved each other and put in extra work, extra time to really help create the show.
I remember Skeet said at one point, 3 episodes into the 2nd season, he was more tired than we were after almost 13 episodes of the 1st season. You know, because the story moves so quickly, it's such a roller coaster ride that you just have to be there.
Having fewer days and less money, somehow it worked. It's unfortunate because now I'm sure the networks will be saying, oh, we should do that with every show. If it's better in 7 days, imagine how good in 6 days.
John Kusakis, who's our line producer for season 2, we would come to him and we would say, this is what we want to do. And he would never freak out. He would say, let me see what I can do and let's figure it out. And we'll go talk to this visual effects guys and we'll see what we can do.
They want to conclude the war. They don't want to just talk about it and do flashbacks.
This major war happened, and we didn't want to sell it short. We didn't want to just jump in time right away and say, oh, we couldn't afford that war.
That battle sequence with the napalm in the beginning was a 3-hour sequence. We went out, we rehearsed, we walked the location with crew members, we walked with special effects, we walked with everyone.
We shot it out at the ranch in Simi Valley that we'd been using to double for Jericho, Kansas. And really the toughest part about it was we had to shoot the battle before lunch and then move on and do an afternoon's worth of work. Action!
Luckily, Steve Boyum's reel and resume fell on our desk, and we sat in the room. He was our first meeting, and we sat in the room, the 3 of us, Danny and I and Steve, and we looked at him and straightforward said to him, listen, Steve, we're shooting 7 days. We don't have as much money from last season. Episode 1 has to be big. We're blowing stuff up. What can you do? And he looks at us and he says, I can do it in 5 days.
I come from an action background, and I was able to pretty much lay out this battle and do it in a way that was without a lot of cutting in it.
He came in and set the tone for what we could do. He showed us that we can do 7-day episodes and do these big action sequences and set the tone for the other directors that came in after him, because now we were able to go, look what we did on the first one.
For season 2, we wanted to go a lot broader with the show. We wanted to look at what was going on, you know, nationally after a catastrophe like we have in the show, and not just focus on the immediate survival instincts of getting food and resources, but really focus on what's happening in the real world and how important is Jericho to what's happening out on a national scale.
We're not looking at Jericho by accident. The reason why we're looking at Jericho is because Jericho is strategically an important town. It's important for Robert Hawkins and his mission, but it has certain things that are going to make it stand out and it survive whatever the attacks were going to be.
It's about a bigger story. It's no longer about being isolated. It's about being a part of something and then having to figure out whether it's something you really want to be a part of.
In the show, the new government is not looking out for us. And it's up to us as patriots, as citizens, to take back what is ours.
The government comes in to calm things down, but they can't do everything. And so what do? They bring in civilian contractors. And then, well, they still need a security force that's not necessarily military. So what do? Well, that contractor has its own security force.
The Ravenwood thing, came last season. That was in the middle of season 1 where we introduced Ravenwood and really wanted to bring them back. They were just pretty influential in the fact that companies and governments do work very closely together, and we wanted to take that to a whole nother level.
Everything felt very pertinent and relevant to what our country was dealing with, and what our country in Jericho was dealing with, sort of meshed in a weird way.
I got cast after a long campaign of bribery, coercion, usury, loan sharking, whatever it took.
Esai's character was sort of came together throughout the second half of season 1 in our heads. He was a number of different characters that kind of coalesced into one.
He's a good guy. He's someone that you want to root for, but you're not sure either. And you can't tell the difference between me and Phil Constantino. I had a great time working with Sprague. Chemistry develops between them. They go through the drama of a couple, including betrayal, trust issues, and they come through it.
We see her really stand up to this government official in a way that first season Heather never would have done. And from the very beginning, there's a tone set that Heather is a woman now, that Heather has truly grown up.
You're naive.
And you're a coward.
Excuse me?
You know there's something wrong with this country.
I think Jake and Emily, after the first year, realized that they needed to be close again, and they wanted to be. It's nice. It's not a tough job for me either.
I literally can't go on without Jake, and I think it's a really good arc that a man who's been, for a good number of years, totally self-sufficient, finally has to ask for help.
We broke up the 7 episodes like a movie or miniseries, and we knew we needed something right in the heart, right around episode 4, something to happen that changes the arc of the story.
We needed something to happen that was so unthinkable, so wrenching and so horrible that this town would revolt against the government. We were in the writer's room talking about it, and at one point, I don't remember who said it, but it was, well, if he killed Bonnie, and we were like,
Whenever you're thinking something and somebody else pitches it in the room, you know you're probably onto something. And so it just kind of picked up, and we all kind of looked at each other and was like, is this something we really want to do?
We brought her in to tell her the news, and she just hugged us and said thank you. She goes, thank you for not only the last season and a half, but for giving Bonnie this moment, for giving me a chance to do something I've never done before in my career.
When we were casting for this part, Bonnie wasn't deaf. Our casting directors, Sharon and Sherry, brought this amazing actress in and said, you have to meet with her. She's great. She's on a show now. The one glitch is she's deaf. And we said, well, what are we going to do with that? We don't know. It's not written for a take the audition. We auditioned her, and from that moment on, this is Bonnie, and we wrote the character for her.
A lot of us were really upset that was the character that was leaving. She was a lot of the heart of this show.
we didn't want to lose her as an actress, but when you're in a situation like we're in, you really have to go for broke. And we've said from the beginning, anybody can die in Jericho because it's a dangerous place.
Once you start working on the show, you kind of, there's a possibility that you might potentially be dying. And I'm able to go out in a way that is big and, very heroic and actually make a contribution to the show, which is a huge blessing.
Action. TV.
She went and practiced with our military techs and our prop guys for a couple days to get it right, because she's like, I'm a farm girl. I need to be able to shoot a gun and know what I'm doing, and she nailed it.
That relationship she has with the brother is one of the most unique relationships in television right now, and so for it to end, I thought was quite sad.
I know. I'm an idiot. Making fun of me.
Some of the worst arguments we ever had in the writer's room in 2 seasons were about Stanley killing Getz.
We wanted one of our lead characters to get their hands dirty and make a difference, make a decision that would affect the rest of this town. Stanley's character did probably one of the hardest things we've seen a character do on our show and take revenge.
People were very afraid that it would cause Stanley's character to be altered forever, that it would cause the audience not to like him, that it would, that he wouldn't be funny anymore, that we couldn't play romance with he and Mimi anymore. And sort of my thought was, first of all, you got to give the big action to your own characters, and Brad Beyer was amazing. And you also want those characters to deepen and go further and get more involved in the story.
Stanley, get off! No, it's not. You've taken away something from him that is such a huge part of him. I mean, the only way he knows how to react is to avenge it, to go after the person who did this to his sister.
And you want them to change. You don't want Stanley to constantly just be the sweet kind of farm boy. He needs to change and grow. And so somebody was going to kill Getz. They were going to kill Getz because Bonnie was killed. Has to be Stanley.
Stanley.
I'm very proud of that moment. I think it's a moment where the show didn't lose its nerve. I'm very proud of that.
The city now has electricity, and so there was some, commerce going on again, so it was a different look for the show. The clinic that we built actually was supposed to be like a small kind of town clinic, not necessarily a huge hospital. And in prior seasons, they had used the exterior of the writers' building for that. So we built that actually on this stage. It was one of those sets that we kind of threw up and we ended up using quite a bit in the season. Preparations for the presidential visit, we had to, be prepared to do it out at the farmhouse as well as the street. And that was a lot of extras and cars and flags everywhere to sort of get that really country pride and all that. So that was fun out there.
We had a situation where we had to have a helicopter gunship chasing down Lenny in his SUV that is being pursued by 3 Hummers. I was able to find an area out at our ranch in Simi Valley that I could light to be able to shoot 4 different roads all within the same lighting setup. It just took a really great pilot and some great stunt people, and I had 5 cameras on the evening, and we were getting ready to do our first shot of the night, and this great full moon comes up over the horizon. And I realized, God, if we get the helicopter off the ground right now and we fly it right between the moon and the camera, we'll have this great apocalypse now kind of shot. And I'm screaming like a maniac and running around, get the helicopter up in the air and get this camera over here and set it up with a 300mm lens. Come on, guys, come on. We had a great effects coordinator, J.D. Street, who's been doing this for many, many years, and his team really, pulled this thing together and made it happen. J.D. was on the button, and, it was up to him to push it when the helicopter got to a point in space, and I think it's very believable.
The big effects for us in season 1 were just explosions, and now we were really kind of getting into a much bigger canvas.
In the battle sequence, we have the napalm run, and the big explosion was all live action and in camera. And we comped in the fighter jet and the canisters dropping into it. So it was a complicated little bit of visual effect.
It was a fantastically beautiful explosion. Looked great. Big plumes of fire and big black volume smoke, something that would have been really impossible to create computer generated in the time that we had. But there were a few gaps, so it didn't look like that wall of flame that the writers wanted. So we went in after the fact and were able to take small pieces of the explosion from earlier in that take or from other takes, extract them from one plate and put them into the other so it looked like one continuous wall of flame without any gaps. You're never going to be able, on a television time, budget, schedule, and for safety reasons, to actually collide a full-size steam locomotive with a full-size Abrams tank.
The tank is a real tank, and the railroad tracks were about a 300-foot section of track that we built in. The train is a miniature that we shot at a local area in Los Angeles called Travel Town, and comped those two elements together.
We took the back plate that was shot on the day, and we put the tank in place, drove the tank out, and we did a swap. We modeled and textured and lit our CG tank so it looked exactly like the tank in that position. Did the same thing for our miniature train and put that in there. Did all the dynamic animation. There was coal and the coal car falling out. There's all kinds of dust and debris, and it pushes the train off the track. The idea was to create a skyline of a growing, burgeoning metropolis. It was up to us to gather all the reference information from the real Cheyenne and virtual construction sites, moving cranes that were working, pulling girders up and stuff like that, just to give it some life.
John Steinberg, I think, came into the writer's room one day and said, "We need Jake in a plane. We talk forever about Jake. He can fly, and we've never shown Jake in a plane." And it was like, can we do a dogfight?
Yeah, that's a great idea. The visual effects soup's dream is to do, an air-to-air dogfight. And this is the kind of stuff that's, that we live for. So we were really excited right from the beginning.
Unidentified Cessna on heading 086.
The visual effects people told us that that stuff has never been done on television before, and they were so thrilled to be able to be the people who did it.
In the same way that episode 22 of the first season was a blossoming of the show into a much bigger story, I think episode 7 of season 2 was the same thing. It's watching this story blossom into another canvas and into another world.
Son, I don't know what you're carrying, but whatever it is better be good. Because I think I just declared war on Cheyenne.
We were asked by CBS to give them 2 different endings to the show. We resisted for a very long time, but ultimately we understood the wisdom of not frustrating the audience in case we don't get a 3rd season.
We had always wanted to shoot one ending, and the network, with our best interests in mind, just said, look, if for some reason our ratings aren't great, be prepared. Let's have a backup plan.
We shot our original ending, which is awesome and very dramatic and doesn't really end on this huge cliffhanger. It really is very emotionally satisfying, but it tells you what the mission has to be for season 3.
Where are you going? To get my friend. You coming?
CBS still wanted to make sure that the fans got an ending. So we wrote another ending and we shot that one.
The story is now put to closure, and we chose to do that between Hawkins and Jake.
It just puts a finer point on season 2 and lets you know that all of our characters are okay.
How does it feel? What? Making history.
It was a big, big episode. But at the end of the day, we finished everything in 7 days, came in on budget, and with 2 endings, and a visual effects team came in and helped us a great deal.
The finale was wonderful to see so many actors at the grave.
I remember that moment. It was a nice moment because we were all there on set together, and we knew it was the last day of the season, and the sun was setting, and it was quite nice.
I think is a pretty good way to go out, and it's a beautiful night, and it's been great. This is one of those nights that you just kind of are very lucky to be able to do this.
This is the nicest group of people I've ever worked with. I've never enjoyed going to work more in my life.
We made 7 really incredible episodes that moved the show forward at a really quick pace.
These 7 episodes are the absolute best work we've done since we've started, so I feel very proud of that.
By the end of episode 7, you have gotten 22 episodes worth of information, and we hope that that will be really emotionally satisfying for the fans.